The BCBA said we should start with pictures, and the speech therapist said we should start with a dynamic AAC device. If you've ever been put into that triangle of non-collaborative chaos, then you are listening to the right podcast episode. Welcome to my second mini podcast episode today, all about collaboration and AAC. I am doing four mini episodes this summer that are solo shows about questions I get asked about a lot. So today in this episode, I am going to talk about tips and strategies for collaborating around the topic of AAC. I'm going to talk about an assessment that I love and adore that is free. It's free, people. I'm also going to talk about how SLPs and BCBAs can collaborate from assessment through intervention. If you like our episode today, I hope that you will join us in the ABA Speech Connection membership. We offer CEUs, both live and self-paced, for speech language pathologists and BCBAs. We also have a student and RBT tier as well. And we see you RBTs. We have courses for RBTs in 2026. RBTs are also going to have to get CEUs. Another thing to think about. We would also love to have your group join us in the ABA Speech Connection CEU membership. We have a handful of groups, and I love that. I love that we can come together and learn. Enjoy this second mini episode.
I'm Rose Griffin, a speech therapist, board-certified behavior analyst, and founder of ABA Speech. It wasn't all that long ago that I felt overwhelmed by providing therapy for my autistic students and any students who were not yet speaking. Fast forward through many doubts, tears, research, and courses, and you will see the framework that I use today and share with over 60,000 readers weekly. One that will help you support your students and feel more confident in the process. I created the ABA Speech podcast to give you simple, step-by-step strategies to help you reach all of your students wherever they are on their communication journeys. If you're a speech therapist, BCBA, RBT student, or parent who's looking to help all students develop a way to communicate with the world, you are in the right place, friend. Let's get started.
The BCBA said that we should start with PECS, and the speech therapist said that we should start with the dynamic AAC device. Have you heard this? Has this? And I'm the parent, and I'm in between. We never want to put parents in this situation. Today, on my second installment of our mini podcast episodes this summer season, I'm going to be talking about collaborating around the area of AAC. In one of my courses, Intro to AAC, that we offer in the ABA Speech Connection for speech therapists and BCBAs, we talk all about not putting a parent in a situation where they're in the middle. We really need to make sure that we have a collaborative loop. Now, I know there's a lot of barriers to that. I talk to people inside the ABA Speech Connection, and they say, this kid started ABA when they were very young, and the clinic just set them up with a device. And it actually is working for the student, and this is great. I talk to other people that say, you know what, they got set up with the device and then they didn't get speech therapy till they were 4 because there was a waiting list, and we don't know if this is the best form of communication. Or maybe they're having a hard time using it at home. There's a lot of different barriers, but there are things that we can do to collaborate more effectively around the topic of AAC. So today in my mini episode, less than 10 minutes, I'm going to be talking about how we can collaborate around the topics of AAC. I think one of the things that's very important is that we become familiar with AAC. I know that I was not familiar with AAC, and I remember when I first started in a program, every single student used a certain software of AAC, and I had never seen it before. And to say that I was overwhelmed would be putting it lightly. I had no idea what I was doing. Until one day, about a month into this position, I went into one of the devices and I just took time to methodically go through and touch all the icons and see what was inside the device. Because back then, I think I had to use the actual student's device. Like I couldn't get that person's vocabulary on a main iPad. I'm really dating myself here. But I was scared and I didn't know how to find things in the device. And if you can't find things in the device, you're not going to be able to model and things like that for your students. So I think the one thing that's so important when we're collaborating around the topic of AAC is that if there is a BCBA on the case, and if there is a speech language pathologist on the case, is that we try to make sure that we know that we're all on the team together, and that the device does not belong to the BCBA, the device does not belong to the speech therapist, the device belongs to the student. And I think when we really remember that this device belongs to the student, that it makes things easier to collaborate. One really amazing AAC assessment tool that I like to talk about because it's easy and it's free, I said free, is the ALP, ALP. If you Google ALP, AAC assessment, you can get access to this assessment. It gives us a good idea of getting started with the assessment process. And how can, let's say that there's a speech language pathologist and they're kind of taking the charge on the AAC assessment. What could a BCBA do to help out and be collaborative during that assessment? They could take data. Let's say you're using the ALP, or let's say that your clinic has some type of more robust way that they are figuring out feature matching and what is going to be the best device for a student. You want to make sure that the speech language pathologist is taking data during a trial, the parent is understanding that they need to give some data and informed decisions about the device, obviously the student, and telling what do they like, what app is best for them. And the BCBA can also, and RBT can collect data during that time. That's a time that we can be collaborative for the AAC assessment process. We do talk about this more intensely in the ABA Speech Connection, our CEU membership. We have a course all about AAC assessment from Barb Weber, who is duly certified and just a wealth of information in this area. But if you want to get started now, if you're like, hey, Rose, like, I live in a rural area, just like an email I got today, and we have an ABA clinic, but there is a 3-month wait list for speech therapy, which is a reality that's really hard and devastating. This might be something that gives you that information as far as like, let's get started, let's try some things, because we want to make sure that all learners have a way to communicate with the world. So from that collaboration standpoint, we want to make sure that we don't put the parent in the middle. If we can't agree on what the form of communication is going to be, maybe we're going to trial a couple things. Maybe we're going to do sign language. Maybe we're going to try pictures. Maybe we're going to try AAC. And we know that we're going to be taking data across environments to help make an informed decision for this student's communication mode. That is such important information for us to have. So how can we collaborate about that? I think making sure that we know that we exist on the team, working on the AAC assessment process together. So if you don't have a robust way to do an AAC assessment, starting with the ALP, ALP, and I will link that in the show notes, is a really, really nice way to get started. I also talk about this information in some of our AAC courses about intro to AAC, just what is AAC. I think getting started and not feeling overwhelmed is important. AAC assessment. We talk about AAC funding is another big one. And we have courses all in the ABA Speech Connection, which I will link up here individually as well. I think if we have this idea around AAC that we're going to discuss the intervention together, that's important. The other strategy that I highly recommend, and it may not be for everybody, is that only one person programs the device. I just think when we have too many cooks in the kitchen, we get into arguments. Like, why did they put this on the homepage? That's dumb. Or you have to do 5 clicks to get to something very simplistic. Now, we know as the BCBA or the SLP or the parent, we have a vision for why we program something a certain way. But let's have one designated person. It doesn't automatically have to be the speech language pathologist if they're extremely overwhelmed and have a caseload that is not workable and things like that. I'm just overgeneralizing, but I'm a school-based SLP, so, we get overwhelmed. Just having one designated person, because sometimes people may come to you and say, I can't find the button for Ohio, or that's where I live, on this device. And you might say, oh, you know what? It's actually on here. You just need to use the word finder button. That's something you can use on an AAC device. You can search it, and then it shows you exactly how to click to get to that. Or, the student is, clicking the buttons, but they're having a hard time clicking the right button. Is there enough? Is there too many icons on there? Do the buttons need to be larger? These all really should be team-based decisions. So I think having open communication, which we're going to start doing some more courses at ABA Speech about how to communicate effectively. That's one of the resources I'm going to share in my last mini episode are functional communication phrases for speech therapists and BCBAs around the idea of collaborating together, because we don't get any training on how to collaborate unless you're in the connection or you've taken some of my courses. And so I think these phrases will be helpful. Today, I wanted to come in for this mini episode all about collaboration in AAC to say, let's please don't put the parent in the middle. Let's work on the assessment process together. I will put information about the ALP below. Let's learn about AAC. Don't let it overwhelm and scare you. I'm going to link up the ABA Speech Connection where we have courses on Intro to AAC, AAC assessment, funding in AAC, how to go beyond requesting. That is a very popular course. And making sure that we make these intervention decisions together. And the number one thing I'd say is, and if you disagree with me, let me know, because I'd love to hear your feedback, but one person to program the device. And you may not like that, but that's just usually how I operate. Another thing that I would steer clear of is please don't put one button on the homepage that says ABA, and then you open it and it has all these random icons that a kid needs just for one setting. That's really not the motor plan that we want to set up for our learners. We want to think to ourselves, okay, this kid might be 5, but I want to think about him when he's 10. How is his motor plan? How he's pressing the buttons? How is that going to be utilized? And then one last bit of information. This is in a course that we're going to talk about soon, but Dr. Cindy Varter did a really cool article about naturalistic interventions for students who are using AAC. And there's really just not a ton of research on there about that, because a lot of the research for AAC looks at students where they are more in a table-based activity or a structured activity. So just thinking about naturalistic interventions or natural environment teaching and all of those good things as well. Dr. Cindy Varter is actually going to come back and do a course for us in the Connection in October with one of her students, which I'm very excited about. October is AAC month. Yay. So I hope that you like the information that I shared today in this AAC mini episode. I will put the link for the ALP and some of the courses that I mentioned below, and I will see you in the next mini episode.